Welcome to Lemon Stream, where we feature stories of the unknown, mysteries, post-apocalyptic fiction, and other weird stuff. So settle in, get comfortable, get ready. Here we go. The New World, Chapter 23, Taxation Without Representation. Most of the group was up before the sun the next morning to see off their visitors. Tyler and Jared stayed for coffee and a hot breakfast, but were anxious to get back on the road. "I'll follow you down the hill," Michael said. I can show you the hay." Denise had fixed a Goodwill gift package for them, wrapping up a little coffee, some sugar, and a jar of deer meat in a sack. Darren agreed to let them take 2 bales of hay if they thought they could haul it through the snowy road back to their home. Darren and Michael followed them out the door. "It's been a pleasure meeting you," Darren said, shaking their hands. "I hope you can come and visit again. Maybe come spring I can make it up there for a visit. I don't think this leg," he slapped his lame right leg, "would let me get up there in the snow during the wintertime." "We'd love it," Tyler smiled. "Anytime any of you want to come by, please do. It really has been a pleasure. I'll be talking with folks when we get back home, and I'm sure I'll be back to finalize a deal of some sort with the hay." "Why's he running?" Michael said, looking toward the south tree line. Stevie was running wildly toward the house. His feet went out from under him in the snowy path. He quickly climbed back up from the ground and began running again. Stevie reached the group by the front door, breathless and panting. "Coming," he said, pointing to the road. "People!" He gulped air, trying to catch his breath. Darren put his hand on his sidearm and looked down the road. He couldn't see far from where he was. "There's people coming," Stevie said, his chest still heaving. "Lots of them, about a dozen, and they have guns." Alarmed, Darren shouted to the others in the house. "Ma, Sylvia, get the kids into the basement. Denise, Joe, go get your guns. Michael, Stevie, go back to the south tree line and stay out of sight. If things go south, you can fire on them from their flank. Sandy, you and I will meet them down by the road and see what's going on." He turned to Tyler. "You," he said, "may want to take this moment to get headed back home while you can. I'm sorry, but I can't spare Michael to follow you down the hill." "We'll stay," said Tyler, pulling a .40 Smith & Wesson from inside his coat. He flicked the safety off and racked it back. "Let's go," Darren said. "Let's go," Darren said. The 4 men walked down to the end of the short driveway, while the others rushed about to their own stations. When they reached the road, they could clearly see a group less than a quarter mile away, plodding steadily toward them. 11 of them, said Sandy. "They all got rifles and shotguns." It took a good 20 minutes for the strangers to push through the piled and drifted snow in the road to reach the driveway. Most of the group were in dirty, torn jackets and work boots. Their faces were sunken, unshaven, and humorless. A man in front wore a nice winter coat and insulated snow boots. "Greetings," said the man in front as he approached. "I am Captain Mueller of the Sandy Bend Militia. We are here to collect your tax." "Tax?" asked Darren. "Everyone needs to do their part. These are difficult times all around, and you are all required to meet your obligations. Your levy is 20% of all foodstuffs, 10% of clothing, blankets, and footwear, 20% of any livestock, 50% of all ammunition. Your obligation is due immediately." "We don't live in Sandy Bend," Darren said. "You do now," Mueller said. "We go where we see fit and expand where we choose. It is not advisable to resist us." "We do not live in Sandy Bend," Darren said again. "We are in no way, shape, or form under your authority or in any way obligated to anyone in Sandy Bend." Mueller cleared his throat. "How many of you are there?" the captain asked. "Enough," Darren replied. Mueller grimaced. "How much food do you have?" he asked. "Not enough," said Darren. "How much ammunition and how many guns do you have?" he asked. Darren just stared at him. "Livestock?" Darren still said nothing. Do you have children? Mueller asked ominously. I know someone who might like to meet them if you do. We may be able to work out a deal to lessen your tax burden if this conversation is over, Darren stated. Goodbye. Sandy's finger stroked the trigger of his .308 and his eyes narrowed. Don't make this harder for everyone, Mueller said. Just meet your obligation and do your part as a good law-abiding citizen, and everyone benefits. Goodbye, said Darren. Don't come this far north again. We may not be as friendly next time. Mueller frowned. He hesitated as if trying to make a decision. He looked at the 4 men in front of him, then at the house. He scanned the tree lines and looked up and down the road. I regret that you have chosen to be irresponsible, the captain said. That's bad for all of us. I will, indeed, be back, and there will be very serious consequences for all of you. He waved down the road and his men turned and began trudging through the snow back south. If you had been a responsible citizen and a good person today, he said, things would have been better for everyone. You had very simple and fair obligations to meet, and you willfully neglected them. What happens next is squarely on your shoulders. Sad that there always has to be people like you to make good people suffer. Captain Mueller turned and followed his men down the road. Slowly they picked their way through the snow. After about half an hour, they disappeared around the corner. Did I do the right thing? Darren asked, watching them vanish into the snowy landscape. We have no obligation to them, Sandy said. We could be in trouble, said Darren. Look, Sandy said, one thing I've learned, just because someone says something is so, doesn't mean it is so. We have no contract or agreement of any kind with them, and there's no legitimate government unless it operates by the free will of the people. We never assented to their government. They're just a gang of common thugs and thieves operating under the guise of government. And after that comment about the children, he's lucky he still has a head on his shoulders. This is going to mean trouble, Darren said, shaking his head. Yeah, said Sandy. But it would have been more trouble if we just rolled over and given up to them. People like that are never satisfied. They take and they take and they take. Common bullies is what they are, using words and threats to manipulate people into submission. They are the enemy of humanity. Their type was in charge before, and their greed destroyed the world. I will die before I let those types of people come back to power. We have some planning to do, said Darren. He turned to Tyler and Jared. I'm sorry your lives had to be risked in this. When Michael gets back to the house, I'll send him with you down to the barn for that hay. Then you might want to hunker down at your homestead so those people don't come for your things. I'm glad I was able to witness this, Tyler said. We've been so isolated, I had no idea this type of thing was happening. We do need to go back and secure our community. And as for obligations, our only obligation to people like that is resistance. Michael and Stevie returned to the house, and Darren sent Michael to the barn with the 2 guests. The excitement and hope of meeting new people had so quickly given way to a dark storm cloud over the community. That evening, Darren called all the adults together for a meeting after the children were put to bed. He explained every last detail of Captain Mueller's visit. What do we want to do? He asked them. Can we hit them first? Joe asked. Maybe if we surprise them, we can have the upper hand. I wouldn't advise it, Darren said. We don't know any specifics about where they are and how many people they have. One thing we do know is they have more people than we do. I think being the smaller force, our best option is to be in a defensive posture if there's any conflict. That's our best option as far as success and reducing casualties. I just don't like how he talked about the children, she said. I know, Denise said. Me either. I don't want to see anyone get hurt, but I'll die standing between them and my child. And, Michael said, we can't give them any of our food anyway. We have barely enough to get us through until harvest. We'll starve to death if we give 20% to them. So we might as well die on our feet instead of on our knees." "Do we all understand what we're saying?" asked Darren. "We're talking about the end of our community. We're talking about us dying, the children dying." "I like how Michael put it," said Sandy. "Let's die on our feet protecting our families, rather than die on our knees in submission to evil people. If this is how it ends, then so be it. Let's end it in such a way that evil people all over this area will think twice before ever afflicting free people again." "It's strange," said Ma. "Just a few weeks ago, most people's biggest problems were choosing which flavor of syrup to have in their coffee and how to get more likes on their social media posts. Now, here we are getting ready to die for something way bigger than ourselves." "The old world," said Joe, "had the same evil people in it. Many of them were in positions of power, but they'd created such a fake world that we were all distracted by stupid stuff that didn't really matter while they looted and plundered." "It's time," Darren nodded, "for us to water the tree of liberty. I've got to know all of you so much better over the last few weeks. I want to tell you how much I respect you all, and what an honor it's been to know you and to work by your side." "We all feel the same," said Ma. I think I can speak for everyone here. It really has been an honor to live together like this and, well, die together if we have to. I've been alive long enough, but I can't think of a better group of people to die with." "Like Michael explained," Sandy said, "they may have more people than us, but let's figure out how to make them hurt, so they think twice before ever doing this to someone again. Make it cost them more than they will gain from it." "We can burn it," Sylvia said, tears in her eyes. "If they get past all of us, let's just burn the whole place so they get nothing." "Scorched earth," said Sandy, nodding his head. "Make it cost them dearly for nothing. Darren, you come up with a plan to defend the place and we'll follow it. We'll make them hurt."